I'd like to answer this in two different levels. First level is the explanation of what was done so well, and that is that all beliefs are created from past experiences. And as we have talked in the model of this work is, the stronger the emotion that you have from some event in your life, the more altered you feel chemically inside of you, the more the brain freezes a frame and takes a snapshot or a series of snapshots, and that's called a long-term memory. And that's embossed, that hologram is embossed neurologically in the brain. And so people tend to think neurologically within the circuits of that experience, and they feel within the boundaries of those emotions. And how we think and feel creates our state of being. So if you have something that happens to you, whatever it is, a simple example, if you're driving a certain make of car and the car breaks down, you may draw the conclusion that all cars like this are terrible cars, they're made poorly. And the moment we draw a conclusion about an experience, we start to form a belief. And so that belief then is very deterministic. It's like pregnancy, either you are or you're not. So people tend to think neurologically in those circuits and the chemistry of those emotions. And how you think and feel is your state of being. Well, we start forming attitudes. And people could have a good attitude in the morning and a bad attitude in the afternoon. So we can say attitudes are shortened states of being. Well, if you take an attitude, an attitude, and an attitude, and you start combining those, and you begin to form what's called a belief. And a belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again until you hardwire it in your brain. And the thought combined with the feeling, the memory and the emotion, the stimulus and the response, is conditioning the belief to be subconscious. So all beliefs then are subconscious states of being. So people would say, well, I believe in this work. It makes sense to me intellectually. I understand it. I believe in it. I want to do it. But then the next question is, does it work for me? And this is where it's fundamentally important, because some people will do this work and they'll get up and they'll believe in their future more. That's because they change the way they think and feel. And some people do this work and they get up and they believe in it less because they haven't changed the way they think and feel. And so these beliefs become subconscious and hardwired in our brain and body. So then in order for us to change a belief or perception, we have to kind of refine what it is. And because it's subconscious, a lot of times if you ask that question before you go to sleep, and you can slow the process down of falling asleep, and you really ask the question, you keep it on your mind, and your brain waves begin to change. As they slow down, the moment before you fall asleep, your brain moves into a slower brainwave pattern, like a theta brainwave pattern or a lower alpha brainwave pattern, and the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind opens up, and all of a sudden you become aware of what that is. So the insight and the awareness does nothing to change the belief. It's just now you're aware of what you were once unaware of, and you become conscious of what you've been unconscious to. Now, that is the moment where we have to do something about it. In order for us to change a belief or perception about ourselves and our lives, we have to make a decision with such firm intention that the amplitude of that decision carries a level of energy that's greater than the hardwired programs in the brain and the emotional conditioning in the body. And the body literally has to respond to the mind. That the choice that we make in that moment in time becomes a moment in time that we never forget. That's the moment you could say, I remember when I made up my mind to change. Because the amplitude of that energy, the choice to make that change, carries an emotional state that's greater than the original belief, greater than the emotion from the outer event that created that belief in the first place. So that in order for us to bring the body out of the past and begin to align it to a new future, the amplitude of that emotion has to be greater than the experience emotionally of the past. And if it's done properly, and we combine that clear intention with the elevated emotion, the body begins to get a sampling, a taste of that future in the present moment. And it's so objective It doesn't know the difference between the outer event that creates the emotion and the inner event that the person's creating by thought alone. So we could say then, as the body gets a taste of the future, it's changing its destiny because it's aligning to that future. And now all of a sudden, the person begins to feel a physical change, an emotional change, a chemical change. And that's a big explosion, a big stone we drop in the placid lake of the quantum field, and it creates strong ripples. And so it may take a series of these decisions every day where we start conditioning the body to respond to the mind. And it's essential because if we do this properly, we come out of our resting state and the body's getting new information emotionally, and it's beginning to select and instruct new genes. And genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the biological functions. They're messengers of the body. So in a sense, we're changing the body by thought alone. If the person doesn't come out of their resting state, it takes quite a while for the person to change the belief because they keep returning back to the old state of being. And we talk about this a lot in our week-long events because I want students to begin to have two types of ways they process information. One is the think box, and that is, how did I do on my last meditation? What do I want to work on improving? What did I do really well? I want to do again. And start reviewing that in your mind. And the act of reviewing that is the rehearsal process. And so it's no different than rehearsing anything we do in sports and dancing and acting and music. And when people play an instrument, there's a rehearsal process that goes on. And that rehearsal process is literally changing the brain and body so that when you get to the play box, there is no thinking. All there is you're bringing a level of energy. You start a walking meditation and you close your eyes and you made up your mind who you no longer want to be, and you make up your mind who you do want to be, and you have to feel differently at the end of that walk to know that you've actually changed something biologically. So most people make decisions, and those decisions really never cause them to come out of their resting state emotionally. So they'll say, I want to change tomorrow, or let me think about when's a good time to really begin to make an effort. And the body, which is really pretty much spying on the brain, knows that the person isn't serious about change. But when people say, I don't care how long it takes, time, I don't care how I feel, body, I don't care what's going on in my life or what people think, environment, I'm going to do this. And the person says that, and they make up their mind and the hair on the back of their neck stands up. That's new information to the body. That's rewriting the belief in that moment. You're saying you've made up your mind that that future is something that you want to arrive at. And when you feel that emotion, your body's believing it's starting to live in that future. Do that enough times, a thought and a feeling, a stimulus and response, you start conditioning the body subconsciously to be in a new belief system. So it's essential to do this because it's no different than the preacher in the deep south of the United States moving into a state of religious ecstasy and drinking strychnine and having no biological effects, or the mother whose child is trapped under the car, who walks over to the car and lifts the car up and pulls the child out. The mother doesn't say, oh my God, I had carbohydrates yesterday, I haven't worked out in 2 weeks, I don't know how this is gonna go. There's no wishy-washiness, there's an absolute state, and it's energy then that begins to translate into biology. It's energy that begins to instruct biology or inform biology. And when we want to change a belief, we literally have to understand that this is the moment I'm going to begin to change. And you talk to people in this work that have healed themselves of all kinds of health conditions. They'll tell you, I remember where I was, the time of day it was, who I was with when I made up my mind to change. In other words, the choice that they made became an experience that they never forgot. And the experience was the choice to change. And the stronger the emotion they felt, the more they remember the choice, because it's exactly what happens how we remember the past. Now they're, in a sense, remembering the future. So that's essential in the process. The other element that is also essential, and I've faced this enough times, is that when you have a belief about something that's subconscious or unconscious, and now you have it in your awareness, it takes constant remembering to not forget. And it's okay that we forget, because you're working on changing something and you forget and you go unconscious. and then you realize you return back to the old self, and that's not any